Good evening, everyone. If you're just joining us, we're glad to see you, have you with us. We're just going to wait another minute or two to make sure everyone gets in.
Landon, will
Yes.
the recording be available on YouTube, or will you have the, okay.
Yeah, I'll post it to, we have an ISA YouTube channel, and then I'll also share out that link to everyone,
Okay, thanks.
like on the list.
Okay.
We'll just give it one more minute, everyone, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I can't see all of you, but it's nice to see some faces I haven't seen for a long time. And I see some of us have better indoor lighting than others. I'm not one of the better ones. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for making time on a Thursday evening to be with us with the Interfaith Sanctuary Alliance. This is our quarterly all-call meeting. And so tonight we're going to be discussing just the different activities that we've been taking as an ISA to support the local immigrant community and as well as the regional immigrant community. And so I just want to remind everyone for housekeeping to put yourself on mute unless you're speaking, just to prevent any feedback. And then I also just want to give a note, we are recording this, as I just mentioned, with Thomas. And so just keep that in mind. It is live on Facebook as well, but I will share the recording as well as the slides afterwards. So you don't need to worry about capturing any of the links or things like that. That will all be shared out to you afterward. So I wanted to start tonight just with another reading of the lovely prayer that Julia Hamilton had written for us for the Love Your Neighbor weekend. And so I'm going to go ahead and read with that. If you would just make yourself comfortable and put yourself into a space of listening. This week, we join with many communities of faith around our city to remember the timeless call to love our neighbor. God of unshakable love, spirit of peace and possibility, in a world torn apart by fear and suspicion, teach us to love our neighbors as if they were our own family. For indeed, we are one human family, united in our desire to live in peace and safety. Teach us to love our neighbors, whether we speak different languages or were born in different places. For all people long for a kind word, a safe home, and a better life for their children. Teach us to love our neighbors, remembering that many of our ancestors came from distant lands and survived only because someone extended them grace and goodwill. In these troubled times, we must be the ones who help each other survive. Let us remember that the person who lives beside us, who knocks on our door in the guise of a stranger, is also made in the image of the holy. When we welcome and make a place for them, we welcome and make a place for you. God of justice and gentleness, strengthen us as we seek to embody the spirit of love in this world. May we always turn towards hope instead of despair. May we always turn towards love instead of hate. May we always turn towards courage instead of fear as we work to build a more beloved world. Amen. Just a good refresher of what we're doing here tonight. This is a much bigger story than just us that are on the call or just us in Santa Barbara County. So we are here to talk about what's been going on recently and what actions are forthcoming. There's quite a bit to go through, and some of it good news and really exciting things to celebrate, and some of it is things that we need to figure out how we can respond well as a community. And I do hear a little bit of feedback right now. Everyone just make sure to mute yourself, please. So I do want to start with some of the really good news. So many of you may recall that as a way to support some of our neighbors locally who are likely to be impacted by the end of the eviction moratorium, we hope to start a campaign to raise funds for Daca fees. Now, this would allow those who receive Daca status to actually be able to apply and not have to pay for the application, which it's a $500 application fee. And then once they get the Daca status, they're able to get a legal work permit, which would enable them to be able to legally earn income for their household. And so this is just a big way to support everyone in our community who's been hurting during this time. And so we had a goal initially of raising 20 Daca fees. And we launched this campaign back in May of 2021. I'm really pleased to share we exceeded the goal. We've raised 53 Daca fees total. This exceeds the number that Immigrant Hope and Importa Santa Barbara had initially requested. They had initially requested 40. And so we're working with them to administer those. And to date, 21 of those have been utilized by members of our local community here in Santa Barbara County. So this is huge. This is really something to celebrate. This is a photo of Lorena, who's on staff with Importa. They wanted to extend a huge word of thank you. And because we have more fees than they had even initially asked for, we're able to support not just those with the highest level of need, but also some who are coming just to apply. And I will say, just as you may have seen Daca in the news, the federal government, Department of Homeland Security, is not accepting new Daca applications at this time due to a ruling from a federal court in Texas. And so the fees right now are being used entirely for Daca renewals. So people who've had Daca in the past and it's expiring are able to use these fees for that. So still going to a good purpose, but we continue to hold out hope that that the rulings will change. And I did want to recognize some of the faith communities. We had a ton of individual donors, but I want to recognize some of the faith communities and faith organizations that donated as organizations. So the Church of the Beatitudes, the Community Shul of Montecito and Santa Barbara, First Congregational Church, Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation, Ocean Hills, SB Cares, Shoreline Community Church, Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara, and Trinity Episcopal Church. And then, as I said, many countless individual donors. We're really, really grateful for all of your generosity. And we do have a couple words from some of the Daca recipients. Some of the folks who applied through Importa and Immigrant Hope were gracious enough to send us some letters just explaining their experience. And so I'm going to ask Thomas and Ellen if you'd be willing to share some of those letters.
Okay, I'm going to read a short letter, then Thomas is going to read a slightly longer one, and I'll read another short one. Thank you very much for the donated funds. That money helped me a lot to be able to renew my permit because at this time I'm short of money due to the pandemic. The donated funds help many people, especially at the moment. I have 2 little daughters I have to take care of. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I can continue to work and move forward for my daughters.
Dear Interfaith Sanctuary Alliance, first, I would like to say a big thank you. Receiving your donation is an honor I couldn't be more grateful. Being migrated from Mexico to California at the age of 2 impacted my life in every way. Being a Daca recipient since the age of 15 has benefited my standard of living. Now that I am 21 and a college graduate, applying to renew my Daca is absolutely essential to reaching my goals. In 2020, I graduated from community college and was ready to transfer to California Polytechnic State University. My goal is to go to school and have a career in the environmental field, whether it be in a government job like a national forest or a career in a lab with a private company. I am going to make a difference in my community and for the planet. Since I am not a citizen, I could not receive funds from from FAFSA and was denied all of the scholarships I applied to. At that point, I did not have enough money or even cover my courses. I decided to pause school to work full-time. My goal is to eventually return to school, but in the meantime, I am a full-time worker. I rely heavily on receiving a work permit to be able to pay rent, gas, groceries, and save up to return to school. Being the only daughter out of 4 to have a license, I am responsible for driving and running errands for my family, meaning I have to pump gas regularly. I'm recently married, so I have the new pressure of putting in my half of the rent monthly, while also trying to save for a down payment on a home. With the contribution, I can keep my savings and not worry about rent. Having support to receive a work permit will allow me to reach my goals to help others. As you can see, I have very high hopes for my future, and I'm doing everything I can to get the place I want to be. Thanks to you, once I have received my work permit in the upcoming months, I will have a sense of security for the next 2 years. Every year, I know I get closer to becoming a citizen, and I couldn't thank you enough for your support.
Thank you so much for funding my Daca application. I'm currently working as a part-time associate at In-N-Out Burger and also studying full-time at California State University, Long Beach. This past year posed many physical, emotional, and mental challenges for me. It didn't help that we all had to experience that awful pandemic, which really put doubt on how I'd be able to fund my Daca renewal. Without renewing my Daca, my employment would be terminated, and so would my academic help at school. I'd like to give a special thank you for being such an amazing person and helping me with this fee. It's difficult being a Daca student and having to pay such an extreme fee while in school, but thanks to your generosity, I'll be able to focus on school and finish my degree this year. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Thomas and Ellen. We are getting a little bit of audio feedback still. I think some of our friends who are calling into the Zoom call, if you would mute your microphone, that would help us to prevent some of that. So I do want to say this campaign is currently closed. And so we're not currently taking more donations for it since we've exceeded our goal. This is going to be something that's ongoing though. Daca renewals only last for 2 years and then it needs to be renewed again. And so it's something that we may consider as an ISA doing on a recurring basis. But I really do want to just say a big thank you to everyone who's given. This is a really concrete way to help our neighbors during this hard time. And it's amazing to see how much the community has turned out for this. So thank you. Are there any questions about the Daca campaign? Lovely. All right, not seeing any. We're going to keep moving here and move on to our border support campaign. So I think Molly is going to share with us along with Lorinda and Thomas.
Hi, this is Lorinda. I'll start out. I'm a member of both Drivers Listos and Trinity Episcopal. And the border support campaign was supported by 4 congregations: the Catholic Church of the Beatitudes, Trinity Episcopal, Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church, and Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara, and volunteers from Drivers Listos as well. So it was a concerted effort. The 4 congregations put out a call for specific listed supplies and monetary donations. And Reverend Thomas Velp composed the list based on his experience with immigrants and information from Border Angels, which serves immigrants. Volunteers were recruited from all 4 congregations and Drivers Listos, and John Altman from the Unitarian Society recruited a large number of Unitarians to help with the collection and sorting of the donations. The Unitarians graciously loaned their parish hall for this purpose. So we met in the parish hall for 3 3-hour days to sort and inventory the supplies. So the drivers would have lists of items for customs. And, when I came in on the second day of donations, there was a veritable mountain of supplies. And we just looked at that and said, how are we going to organize it? But we did, and got it all sorted. The Unitarians graciously, oh, I already said that. Expired food was disposed of and other supplies which were not needed at the camp were used for other purposes, such as donated to Showers of Blessing or Goodwill. And then on the third day, we proceeded to load the vehicles and sent them on their way. And this is where Molly comes in. Are you there, Molly?
I'm here.
Okay.
Hang on, I have to adjust what I'm doing with the phone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks to the faith communities, we were able to move forward with a huge amount of supplies to take down. And I want to thank everyone at the Unitarian Society, Trinity Episcopal Church, the Catholic Church of the Beatitudes, Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church, and everyone else who contributed. Thanks so much. So we had made contact with an organization called Border Angels that is connected with the border camp called El Chaparral. This is a camp that has between 2,000 and 3,000 migrants. They're about half of them are children. I'll describe a little bit later what the camp looks like. In any event, through Border Angels, we were able to cross the border and bring goods to the camp. I was also in discussions with the Mexican consulate because we wanted to get documents that would allow us to basically bring all these goods through without paying duty on them. That proved to be a large bureaucratic task. We thought we had accomplished it, but not 100%. So we started our drive down with cars loaded with Jeff Crutch, Diane Fox, Anna DiStefano, and Deb Karoff. We met at the border someone who's with Border Angels and who's also a journalist. And he crossed the border with us so that we could easily find the way to the camp. We had to stop at the customs office on the other side of the border while they looked at what we were bringing into Mexico. All of that took about an hour because there was only one customs person on duty at that point. And the documents that we had prepared and worked on with the Mexican consulate didn't arrive from the consulate in Ventura, but nevertheless, we were able to negotiate a fairly reasonable amount of $400 in duty for all the goods that we were bringing across. So this experience with customs helped us formulate a new plan that we made for bringing goods to the camp, and I'll talk about that later. We met up with representatives, having driven to a location a few blocks from the camp. We met up with representatives of the camp, and they took us one vehicle at a time into the camp.
Landon, do you want to advance through the slides?
I can't really do that.
Okay.
So I'm going to let, maybe I can. Otherwise, if Landon can do that.
Yes.
Landon's doing it.
Yeah.
You can
So
advance through the slide. Okay. So the distribution of the goods that we brought began immediately as each car was unloaded very quickly and efficiently. The goods were taken to one location and the line formed for distribution. The distribution was very organized and calm. People remained cheerful and grateful for what we had brought. We were all moved by this large encampment. Everyone was living in tents. Some people had some cooking equipment, many children. There were people from Haiti, even from some of the African territories, but the majority were people from Central America, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. We were very impressed by the good nature and remarkable cheerfulness of most of these people living under these incredible circumstances. They were very dependent. They are very dependent on food that's given to them and equipment. So as we distributed these items, the most popular item was diapers. And we realized also that we should have brought more baby wipes. I have to say personally, from my own standpoint, I have been in refugee camps in other parts of the world. But when I walked into that camp, it was a heart-rending experience for me because I've never been in a camp, an encampment like that, where people were waiting to enter my own country. It was very moving. So we then went back across the border. There was a very long wait crossing the border. Also, because of the length of the drive, the wait at customs and return to the US, this ended up being a 17 or 20-hour day for everyone. Some of us decided to stay overnight in San Diego or a little further up, but not driving all the way back to Santa Barbara, which was a challenge after such a long day. So basically, in conclusion, because of the length of time it took to deliver these goods, drive down there, the duty that had to be paid, the time spent gathering the goods, even though amazing work by everyone at the Unitarian Parish Hall, we decided to review our experience and determine a better way to bring goods across the border. So after research by a number of members of our task force, we located Sister Suzanne Jabro of Trinity Episcopal Church in Palm Desert. She has extensive experience distributing goods to the El Chaparral camp and other locations south of the border. We concluded that the best way to proceed would be to collect monetary donations and provide these funds to Sister Jabro and have her buy goods in Mexico, thereby avoiding customs duty and also contributing to the Mexican economy. Sister Jabro said that she's very happy to have anyone accompany her to Mexico if anyone wants to contribute to purchasing goods and contribute to being involved in the distribution at the camps. So if there's any questions, please let me know. This was a remarkable experience for all of us.
Just one comment, if I may, Molly. I think that one thing that I'd just like to emphasize too is that, especially with these camps, they're not recognized by the Mexican government, so they're not protected by the Mexican government. So these are people that are not just vulnerable, but in danger, but also these are people that are, they're on a knife's edge in terms of, their existence being in the spot they're at, but also having to be moved out and go home. So the choice of these camps is just showing just the incredible need that these are places that wouldn't come up if you started looking into them yourself. You do have to kind of know somebody that knows how to get there. So it's a very unique experience in that way, but it's important then that we support, because there are people that are even more vulnerable, I would say, in a way than those who are in recognized camps.
So that's absolutely true, because they don't receive any regular support through any institutions. And in addition to that, we were warned by border angels when we crossed and when we dealt with customs not to openly say that we were bringing goods to the El Chaparral camp, because the El Chaparral camp is actually located on land, on some ground that is the property of the Customs Authority of Mexico. So they're sort of annoyed that this part of what is their property and ground is taken up by this encampment.
So we do have a short video with, it's an interview that Lorinda and I think someone else from the ISA met with Suzanne Jabro. And so I'm just going to share that, and that will lead us to talking about what their current need and ask is.
It was actually Anna and Deb who interviewed her.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And then when I start the video, can everybody just give me a thumbs up that you can hear it? Otherwise, I'll restart it.
Well, my name is Suzanne Jabro. I'm a sister of St. Joseph of Carondelet, and I've spent most of my life working as a chaplain in prisons in California and Washington State. Primarily, they're coming from 3 countries: Honduras, Salvador, and Guatemala. And a lot of violence, and then a lot of weather, a lot of climate that just wiped out the coffee fields. So there's no work there in Guatemala. So a lot of people came because of that. They just have to give their kids a better life. And so they came, and then the others were very threatened. So the gangs will come to the door and ask you to pay a tax. There were 125 average in that shelter. It's a Motel 6, 2 stories, one on top of the other. Laundry is hanging over everything, and drying. And there's an open kitchen, and the women take turns cooking food from their country. Okay, so they eat 3 meals a day with the donations that we've given. Everything's like powdered this and powdered that because they don't have really very much refrigeration. What our focus would be is to try to get various churches or church groups or church organizations actually that would take a month, that they would be the people that would be providing for the food and the whatever is needed to be purchased in Mexico because of the difficulty getting across. So what we do is somebody will say, well, you know what, this church wants to help this particular month, so we count on them. Monetary donations for when a group gives for that month, we buy food. We could spend $2,000 on food. And she goes to 2 markets, one that has all the meat and stuff and cheese and that, and another one that has more dry goods and vegetables and fruit from the fields. And we pay cash. We can use our credit cards if their machines are working. That's always iffy. Okay, so, but you could use American dollars. And we've been to Walmart, but what we're doing is we're buying food because they're food insecure. We also buy hygiene stuff because they don't have any. And a lot of cleaning supplies because it's costly, but they have a lot of stores where they have a Smart and Final, so you can go and buy stuff like that. We buy a lot of hygienes. I mean, they need a lot of personal supplies. They need underwear. The men really, they were desperate for underwear. They want to get day jobs. So they wanted jeans and they wanted tennis shoes, and we haven't figured out how to go to a big place down there and buy a bunch of jeans and tennis shoes because that's really what they need. And they're small of stature, most of them.
So the need is likely to be ongoing for...
Totally ongoing. Because, okay, I told you, so what happened is my little 125 people usually are now up to 198. And the people, now there's 100 people down the kitchen on the floor. So if these people get out, which some of them are getting hearings, because our lawyers filled out forms and a bunch of people expected to go, which means they're going to cross with their families. Then those 100 could come to this shelter. So we're still at 100 and something. But anyway.
Look forward to working with you.
Yes, it would be really great.
Thank
Yes.
you.
So as I mentioned, the PowerPoint slides will be shared out afterwards, so you'll have access to them.
Well, my name is Suzanne.
And I don't know, Lorinda or Molly, if one of you would like to talk about the fundraising goals here.
Lorinda, I'm going to let you do that.
Okay, thanks, Molly. So we were talking about possibly, Deb and Anna spoke directly with Sister Suzanne, and she was saying that there's sort of a benchmark of $2,000 in expenses a month to help these 200 people, which doesn't come out to much per person per month. And so as a group, we aspire to cover 2 months worth of expenses, which would be November and December of this year. And with our prior campaign going to El Chaparral, we still have around $900 in contributions in our fund. So that would leave approximately another $3,000 to raise by October 22nd. And I know I brought this up to the Trinity Episcopal Justice and Outreach Council, and we're already set to make a donation. And I think it's achievable and so worthwhile. Anything to add, Molly?
No, and sorry I didn't speak with you after the Anna and Deb after the conversation with Sister Suzanne. Does she have a connection now with El Chaparral as well?
No. She works with La Cobina in Mexicali.
Did anyone speak about the current status of El Chaparral? Because we had heard also that it was going to be disbanded and that some of those people might be moved into permanent encampments. Do we have any more information about that?
I don't have any updates. I don't know if anyone else does. No, Thomas is saying he doesn't either.
Okay.
So
when
I
come
think
back, I'm going to get some information on that.
I think at this time we're shifting, our focus from El Chaparral to La Cobina because of the efficiency of giving funds to someone who is already doing that. And also it's serving the same population of immigrants waiting for amnesty in the US. Okay.
Landon, if I might, and Lorinda, if I might, may I say something?
Absolutely.
So this is Anna. We met with Sister Suzanne. By the way, I think she's actually a Catholic sister, a member of the congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. But we contacted her through Troy Elder, who is an Episcopal contact down there, Episcopalian contact down there. It's all sort of intermingled, people who are working at the border. And so he's the one who I think told her about us or told us about her. And she said that Mexicali has a need at La Cobina, partly because it's further inland. And a lot of people and organizations from LA, she thinks very, very highly of Border Angels and knows of Border Angels, but says most of the work that's happening sort of from the US side is going toward the Tijuana side because it's where our population is and it's where their population is. But the folks in Mexicali, right across from Calexico, are also in great need. So it's not a question of one being more needy than the other. It's just sort of widespread need from one end of the border to the other. And she does have a nonprofit that she's created, and she does have the support of various organizations, faith organizations, for September. That's where she is today. Today she went over. She goes once a month. And so she'll go again at the end of October. In November and December, she may go twice because of the holidays, especially around Christmas. And so I would think the $4,000, frankly, is a floor, not a ceiling, if I might say it that way, because the need will be greater as the months go on. I don't know what to say. I mean, I, like Molly, have the experience at El Chaparral sort of imprinted on me and on my heart. I don't know how to be particularly helpful to them unless we can find a similar contact on the other side who will do what Suzanne does. She walks over with volunteers. She literally walks across the border, so there's no waiting. And then with cabs and other people does shopping and then walks back across the border. So it's just, it's, I hate to use the word efficient, but it is efficient to do it that way. It would be great if we had some way to do that in El Chaparral as well, but I don't know of a way to do that.
Just a question. Well, it's also, if I remember right, El Chaparral has what, about 1,000 people? Is that correct?
More than that, about 2,500 people, the last count.
So I mean,
Yeah,
just,
about 25.
so just looking at financially, impact, I mean, the question for ISA would be, would it be an overall impact where it feeds all the people at a location, or something where you do some of the people at least? Because I mean, we'd have to raise, if we had the same similar numbers, for 2,500 people, that get expensive, I think, really quickly.
Yeah, there's more need than there are resources. Excuse me, Molly, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead. Also, the other, issue with El Chaparral is they have no ability to store anything. So, anything, and things that are brought are distributed immediately. And it sounds like Sister Jabro's the organization that she is working directly with has they have a permanent location, and so they have the ability to store things. So, from the standpoint of what you're speaking, Thomas, yes, there's a more a direct impact that can be sustained over a longer period.
Can I say something?
Please.
I tried very hard to find someone like a Sister Suzanne who serves El Chaparral. I followed up on lots of leads that Molly gave me, and then, followed those leads, which eventually led me to Troy Elder and to Sister Suzanne. But I was not able to find someone, a Sister Suzanne, who's serving El Chaparral. So that was another barrier to helping El Chaparral in this way.
And Lorinda, it's amazing what you were able to do to follow all those leads, because we never had any definitive information. So we were just doing an investigation, at that point.
Well, thanks to your leads, Molly. I just followed them.
Well, are there any other questions for the Border Support Task Force group? Well, we want to give thanks again to Lorinda for all of your work on this, but also the entire group, which is ongoing. And so if anyone here has an interest in being a part of those conversations moving forward, please do reach out. I'll put my email in the chat window, and if any other members of the group want to put their email to reach out more directly. But Thomas, Sally, Molly, Anna, others who I'm not remembering off the top of my head, thank you all for all your work on this. And we will be sending out email updates about this campaign. There was a logistical question about writing checks, and if you want to make checks out, you can send them to SB Act. And I put that information in the chat window, but it's also available at this website at the sbact.org/border. It has information about how to write a physical check if you'd rather do that than an online donation. So
I have a quick question. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my connection here. This is Lane, and I'm wondering if we have any connections with churches in Tijuana who are doing similar work, because it seems to me that would be really valuable if we could make connections with churches there who already have people on the ground who know how things work, who could actually go out and buy things, who could make the connections for us. Is
I
there
reached
any
out
effort
to
in
the
that?
Episcopal churches in Tijuana and I got no response. And then I kind of, just from looking at websites, I surmised that probably the groups that are more active in taking things to immigrants could well be the groups in the US. For example, churches in San Diego or Palm Desert, because they may have more resources. And also, I don't know what the sentiment is among Mexicans toward immigrants, or, toward churches in Mexico toward immigrants. But I did both emails and phone calls to the Episcopalian churches in Tijuana and got no response. Not to say there might be other churches in Tijuana that, would respond, but that's my experience.
If I may, just kind of lend, it was about 2 years ago that I've lost a little bit of contact with them, but when I looked them up again, they're still sort of going, very small community called, it's the Lutheran Church in Mexico, and I'm Lutheran, go figure why that connection would be important. So they had hosted a conference at some point that to get ELCA Amparo in the Pacifica Synod, which is right below us, like the diocese, but area-wise, to focus on work that they could do within Tijuana and part of Baja California, especially for Oaxacans that were coming up to Tijuana. Part of this mission was to try to find partnership to cater to the groups of immigrants. So there is definitely a thought on a need among some churches there. I think the question is of resource, and what at the time these particular partners we were looking at needed was a sustainable relationship in terms of, do we have dates, do we have time? So that is definitely something that we spoke about as a group at one point, thinking about, do we have connections across the border to and even in San Diego? And there are communities that are totally able to, that are totally willing, I suppose, but as a sustainable sort of thing. It never really came to be about how we would work that from Santa Barbara to San Diego and Tijuana. But the other question then also came up was, how do we make an impact at El Chaparral? And I think that that's what sort of, others can speak to this, but I think that that's overall what struck us a little bit, was how do we make an impact on this very large encampment if we're not quite sure who's going to lead us there or be regular there, so that was just, I don't know how helpful that is, but that's some of the context that was there as well and part of the conversation.
Thank you for that, Lauren and Thomas. All right, I'm going to keep us moving. I did want to just touch briefly on some of these kind of emergent needs that we're seeing in the news just this month. So we are, generally in the U.S. right now seeing an influx of Afghan refugees. And as far as we know, there isn't a large population immediately coming to our county, largely because there isn't an Office of Refugee Resettlement here. The closest one is down in Los Angeles. But that being said, it's a large enough number that we want to be prepared to support individuals. And we know that there have been asks from faith communities and faith networks for safe places for members of this community to go. So we do have a small task force that's exploring the possibility of what it would take to support individuals if they came here. And Molly, I don't know if you're still on, if you'd like to share anything more about that.
Yeah, we currently have a task force composed of 4 people. We're keeping it small for the time being because we are really exploring what we can do. Can we sponsor a family or individual? What is the best way for us to support a way to assist, with this huge problem in terms of the thousands and thousands of Afghans who are coming to the United States now. So we will probably work with the Episcopal Migration Ministries on this. I happened to attend a conference in Louisville about 3 years ago that was focused totally on this subject, the manner in which you build an organization to sponsor and support an immigrant, a refugee family. So I'll be back in Santa Barbara on the 27th. And so we will go forward exploring what can be possible.
Thank you, Molly. We appreciate all the different hats you're wearing for this. Similarly, just in more recent news, I'm sure we've all been following the pretty awful stories about what's going on with the Haitian refugees coming to Texas and other southern states in the US. So there are, as of right now, I don't have any actions to report about. There are several petitions to the Biden administration to end deportations back to Haiti, given the current crisis situation after the earthquake. And so there's one that will be linked in this PowerPoint through Families Belong Together, which is reputable agency. But we will keep our eyes on that and see if there are ways for us to support those communities as well.
Well, let me add one thing which I meant to mention before. So initially, the task force that will be exploring what we can do with respect to Afghan refugees, we're starting by assembling a list of local Afghani contacts. And Tony Stewart is keeping that list because we want to find a way to integrate into that community so that in the event that we are able to sponsor someone or support a family, we will be able to help them integrate into the local community. So anyone who has information with respect to any people in the Afghan community that they know, please contact Tony Stewart and provide that information to her.
Thank you, Molly. So we've talked quite a bit in the last quarter about some of the legislation that we've been trying to push, especially through our local 805 Immigrant Coalition, and as well as through broader statewide coalitions to support our California immigrant communities. The biggest one has been the Vision Act, which did pass the California State Assembly, but that basically closes all the loopholes that were left by the California Values Act. At present, there's a list of about 800 different crimes for which local and state law enforcement are able to send someone, transfer someone from a local or state detention facility to an ICE detention facility. Outside of those 800 crimes, people can't be transferred. So the Vision Act takes that away. It removes the ability to have local and state law enforcement interacting with ICE at all to create these transfers, thereby prohibiting this sort of double punishment that we see in our immigrant communities. We had hoped that it was going to go before our state Senate, I think 2 weeks ago, and we had posted several things about it. I think we may have sent an email blast as well saying to call our state senators. And so unfortunately, we found out that it was sidelined. It was pushed back as a 2-year bill, meaning that it will resume moving through the state Senate in January of 2022. And from our understanding, this is in response to some pushback from law enforcement unions in our state. And so some of the legislators who were more moderate or on the fence kind of reneged on their commitment to support the bill. So this is something that we are keeping in front of us, and we will revisit when it goes back before the Senate, hopefully early next year. But we do want to just keep providing updates on that. In good news, the Health and Safety for All Workers Act, which was State Senate Bill 321, is actually going to go before the governor to be signed. So it's passed our legislative bodies in the state of California. This would be a big win for our immigrant communities that are involved in household domestic service industries, because prior to now, those industries have been excluded from protections of the California's Occupational Safety and Health Act. And so this gives those protections and hazard rights and safety protections to those folks, 75% of whom are immigrant women of color. And so we are waiting for this to go before the governor, and our partners with California Immigrant are pushing for all of us to call and write to the governor actually tomorrow, asking him to support the SB 321. And so, as I said, I'll share these slides out. You'll have this text. There's also a link that has like a letter or email that you're welcome to copy and paste if you feel so inclined. But we want to keep supporting our local immigrant coalition who's been working for this, as well as the statewide coalition, so that we can support these folks. We know many of these individuals work in our households here in Santa Barbara County, and it would go a long way to being able to provide a safe work environment for them. Lastly, I do just want to bring up, we do have our eviction moratorium ending in a week. As of now, we don't know for certain how many households this is going to impact. Countywide, there have been thousands, I don't have the numbers right in front of me right now, but more than 3,000 rental assistance applications have been submitted or are processing right now. So there's at least 3,000 households that we know are asking for help or have asked for help. We expect that this is disproportionately going to impact our local immigrant community. We don't know for sure how that will pan out. And we also know that the housing prices have only gone up during the pandemic. And so for families that are evicted, it's going to be only more difficult to find housing in our community. To kind of try and help buffer this at least somewhat, the Santa Barbara Tenants Union has been providing a weekly help desk, which is just a virtual Zoom meeting like this where anyone can come and talk about their issues as a tenant and get some legal support on like, what are my rights? What can I ask of my my landlord? What is my landlord legally allowed to do or not legally allowed to do? But they do need assistance. They do need attorneys, but they also just need interpretation assistance. So if this is something that anyone on this call is interested in, has the ability, or knows someone who might, we encourage you to send that information to Wendy with Cause, because they're really trying to push this as much as they can before the eviction moratorium ends, but even after to be able to provide that information about rights. So I've run through a lot here, and I have a final slide that has just some of the upcoming dates, but I do want to just pause for any questions or commentary. So as I mentioned, tomorrow is that letter writing campaign for SB 321. On Friday, October 22nd is our deadline for the border support donation campaign. Sister Suzanne Jabro in her email had indicated she's planning to go on October 28th. So we want to try and get her the funds prior to that date. We will also plan to have an all-call meeting on December 2nd. And there's a date that I don't have on here, which is the date of the next 805 Immigrant Coalition meeting. And so I will send that out in a follow-up email as well. But that's another way to just hear from our partners that actually work directly with the local immigrant community, the service providers, as well as folks from Cause to hear about what's going on there. So that's all we have for tonight. I do want to just say thank you all again for coming. Thank you to everyone who's put in so much work on all these different campaigns and all the ongoing campaigns. It's really been really cool to see all the coalitions and all the faith communities around this. So I want to thank you all for being here and just say thank you again for your generosity and support.
Thank you for organizing all of this, Landon. Thank you.
Yeah. And have a good night and a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Landon.